Isekai get a lot of flack for being the source of a lot of trash. And to be fair, most of it deserves it. Even the fun Isekai are pretty trashy in their own right. But there are some that stand above the trash. Maybe they've got a phenomenal story that's worth watching. I'm sure you've heard people defending the big ones, Re:Zero, Mushoku Tensei, and That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. There's always the top-tier comedies like Konosuba and Uncle from Another World. Classics like Now and Then, Here and There, Fushigi Yugi, or Escaflowne are all worth watching. But every season contains so many isekai series that many of them are unable to rise above the noise and get the recognition they deserve. So if you're in a binging mood and want to watch a completed and underrated anime, I've got a list for you. Some of them are single core, while some of them are longer. Regardless, I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing. It's a great way to support the channel, and it's free. I know, many of you are thinking I'm crazy including Eminence in Shadow in a list of underrated anime. After all, it was one of the most popular shows of the season. Even going up against bangers like Chainsaw Man, Spy Family, and the final season of Mob Psycho 100, it still managed a pretty hefty following. But hear me out. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned a few isekai that are considered the top of the genre. Mushoku Tensei is genre-defining, and everything that an isekai should be. Re:Zero is a wild ride of a show about self-love and self-worth, disguised as a horror anime. Konosuba is a laugh-a-minute comedy that puts sitcoms to shame. And the reason I put Eminence in Shadow on this list is because I believe it belongs in that discussion. It should be put on the same pedestal as Uncle from Another World or That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. In fact, I would argue that Eminence in Shadow is the funniest isekai of all time. Now, it's not laugh-a-minute like Uncle from Another World or Konosuba. If you watch an episode of Konosuba, you're chuckling pretty much the entire episode. And sure, there are some epic and fun moments tossed in here and there, but for the most part, you watch Konosuba for the laughs. But Konosuba is silliness. It is a sitcom in another world. You've got 4 fun characters who play off of each other, and we, as the audience, get to laugh at their shenanigans. Meanwhile, Eminence in Shadow is long-form humor. Jokes take entire episodes, or even arcs, to be told. For example, the I Am Atomic scene from episode 5. In the first episode, Sid talks about how no matter how much he polishes his skills, he'll never be able to survive a nuclear blast. This helps establish how much of a dork he really is. Honestly, who goes into the woods to learn magic just to become powerful? But then, years later, he figures out the solution. If he can't resist a bomb, he will simply become the bomb.
I am atomic.
Of course, there's always that scene from the first episode where Sid explains why he prefers crowbars over other melee weapons, because of their versatility, then picking up a pair of them when fighting Beatrix and Iris in episode 20. I mean, sure, there are other funny moments. The hot springs conversation between Sid and Alexia, or the one from when they first start dating and he says, "Do I look like the type of guy who can be bought with money?" Hilarious. But comedy alone wouldn't push Eminence in Shadow into Isekai Mount Rushmore territory. You also need world building, characters, and plot, which is where this anime shines. There's more world building and plot in a single arc of this series than there are in most anime. Let's take a look at the Lindworm arc, for example. With the school destroyed, they decide to start summer break early. While most students went back home, Sid finds himself in the city of Lindworm at the request of Alpha. While there, Alpha and other members of Shadow Garden uncover an ancient research facility run by the Cult of Diablo. Ancient history, powerful magic, a sacred dueling arena where heroic figures from the past return as shadows to fight worthy opponents. Just the arena alone would be a major world-building center. But not for Eminence in Shadow. It is a throwaway set used for foreshadowing. And Sid just crashes through the plot and destroys the set anyway with his absurd power. So, not only is Eminence in Shadow hilarious, it also has great world building and plot. Oh, and characters who you simply cannot get enough of. The only reason it doesn't rank higher on the list is that it's not completely unknown. I just think it should get more recognition and be placed higher up on the list of great isekai series. Another one that is a contender for great isekai series is Log Horizon. Old school anime fans will already know this series and agree with me, so let me address those new to anime. Log Horizon first aired back in 2013, and many people wrote it off as a Sword Art Online clone. Bunch of people trapped in a video game, just like the first SAO arc, and the animation isn't nearly as good as SAO. But those who have watched both will tell you that SAO is all sizzle but no steak, while Log Horizon can more than fill your need. Log Horizon starts out the day that a new expansion releases for an existing and popular MMORPG. For those who have never played an MMO, let me assure you that expansion days are crazy. With expansions come new zones, new levels, new abilities, and a whole host of changes. Buffs to underperforming classes, nerfs to powerful classes, and even new classes getting released means everyone is scrambling to enjoy the new content. But with Log Horizon's newest expansion, 100,000 players were transported into the game. And unlike SAO, if people die, they're just resurrected at a nearby church. So how do you organize a society where punishment is impossible? After all, death has no consequences, and people can teleport to the church after dying, so imprisonment is impossible. So what can be done? There are no laws against kidnapping low-level players and forcing them to produce potions. There's no laws against murdering NPCs. But what if death did have consequences? In some MMOs, especially older ones, when you die, you lose experience points. In the real world, we call those memories. That's right, every time someone dies in Log Horizon, they lose some of their memories. But that's not the main reason you should watch this show. The NPC, or People of the Land as they're called in-game, are in awe of the mighty PCs. Unkillable, powerful, with knowledge beyond that of mere mortals like them. They're also afraid of them. So now that the PCs have formed a city with a functioning government, they need to figure out how to establish diplomatic relationships with the other countries. That's right, this series is about creating geopolitical and socio-economic relationships with other nations, while also trying to figure out how to get out of the world they're trapped in, and having fun adventures at the same time. This series has it all: action, politics, romance, character development, discovery. It is a top-tier isekai and deserves another season. Though, if we do get another season, I hope we get the database opening like we got for seasons 1 and 2. Next up, another series that's a bit older, Aesthetica of a Rogue Hero. Now, as ecchi as this one is, the source material is way worse. Allow me to explain. The opening scene has our main character escaping from a castle to take a portal home. The kingdom doesn't want him to leave. After all, he's the hero who defeated the Demon King. They want him to stay, marry the princess, and become the next king. But Osawa Akatsuki has other ideas. The princess's bodyguards, all women, try to stop him. Now, Osawa is a gentleman. He doesn't want to hit women. Instead, he steals their underwear. Bras and panties in every color of the rainbow rain down. But wait, this doesn't make sense. After all, Osawa was trained in pressure points. He's a martial artist with no mana and is a master of pressure points. He's not a thief capable of stealing the clothes off of a person's body. You see, in the light novel, he gives all the women orgasms. So when I said the anime is less ecchi than the light novel, now you know what I mean. But why does Osawa have to escape? Why does he need to return home? You see, the Demon King's dying request was for Osawa to take the Demon King's daughter back to his world. This way, she would be safe. Nobles without power are just pawns, and the Demon King didn't want that for his daughter. He wanted her to be free and happy. So Osawa brings her home with him. They make up some story about her being his long-lost sister, and go on about their lives. Except that people going to another world and then coming back is not completely unknown. Hundreds of teenagers have been to this other world, and they come back with powers. which interests the military-industrial complex a great deal. Superpowered teenagers that they can use in a war? Sounds great. Let's get right into brainwashing them into good little weapons. My one complaint about this series is the cliffhanger ending, though I suppose it did a good job of selling additional light novels, which is one of the points of anime based on light novels. But that ending may annoy people, so I wanted to let you know about it. The whole idea of a world that recognizes kids with superpowers and then puts them to military use was very interesting, and makes for phenomenal world building. But some of you may want to avoid this series due to the ecchi moments. Away Paladin quietly slipped under a lot of radars when Season 1 aired back in 2021. But it was up against Demon Slayer, Komi, and Ranking of Kings, so I don't really blame people for not watching it. Not to mention, people were already getting their isekai fix with the second core of Mushoku Tensei. But this one is absolutely worth your time, especially if you like slow burns with great payoffs. Our story begins when a baby wakes up in a necropolis. At first, the baby is terrified. After all, he's surrounded by undead. A skeleton, a ghost, and a mummy. But come to find out, these are good people. Not just good people, but the best. Once upon a time, they were the strongest party in the world. Heroes in all but name. And he is taught by them. Learning magic and logic from a legendary mage, learning about the gods from a priest beloved by Mater, the Earth Mother, and learning the sword from one of the greatest warriors of all time. Eventually, our boy combines all of their skills and becomes a paladin, a warrior who uses magic and miracles to defeat his enemies. The whole time, our main character is wondering why someone like him was given a second chance. After all, he was a nothing who hid from his responsibilities in his past life. A complete failure. So why him? Why does he have a new life in another world? It's nice to see an isekai that isn't just booyah, new world, new powers, I'm awesome. This is a proper isekai story. But like I said, this is a slow burn. You don't find out why his family is undead or even who they are for several episodes. But the first arc ends with a banger. The rest of the series follows a similar vein. Slow burn with a build-up to a banger of a finale. Even better, this series has 2 seasons. The next one on our list is The Saint's Magic Power is Omnipotent, which is that rarest of isekai stories, a josei. You've all probably heard the word shonen before, and you may know what it means, but for those who don't, shonen means boy. In other words, shonen manga are targeted towards boys. In other words, they are YA literature with a male audience in mind. By the same token, shoujo means girl. Shoujo manga are manga created for and marketed to teenage girls. Seinen means man, and seinen manga are for adult men, and josei, as I'm sure you've guessed, means woman. So this isekai is one that was created for women. Don't be too surprised. Remember, 90s and most of the 2000s isekai were all shoujo series. It wasn't until the 2010s that most isekai were for boys. And the top isekai are for a more mature audience. Be honest, should a 12-year-old be watching Mushoku Tensei? Or Re:Zero? That's what I thought. Now, just because this series is geared towards an adult audience doesn't mean it's gory. But adults crave more complex and nuanced storytelling. We want our characters to be more realistic, even if the situations they find themselves in are absurd. Let me set the scene, you'll understand what I mean. Takanashi Sei is an office woman in her early 20s who works for a black company. For months, she's been pushing 14-hour days. She gets home after 1 a.m., goes to sleep, and is back in the office by 8 a.m. Her one day off a week she spends sleeping. Her face looks horrible, her skin is pasty, and she has bags under her eyes. Long hours without proper rest at a thankless job will do that to anyone. One night, she comes home from work and a portal appears beneath her feet. A flash of magic later, and Sei is in another world, surrounded by knights, nobles, and wizards. And what appears to be a Japanese high school girl. Of course, the younger, cuter girl is obviously the saint. There's no way this old, worn-out woman could be her. So Sei is ignored after being yanked out of her home by these people, and is pissed. Which is right and proper. She's also told they can't send her back, and that she's not allowed to leave the castle. After all, there are monsters wandering outside. But she is allowed to wander the palace grounds. Eventually, she comes across an herb garden. As a child, Sei made lotions and soaps with her mother, so she has a love of herbs. While at this garden, she meets Jude, an alchemist working for the kingdom. As it turns out, this herb garden is used by the alchemists to create potions. Sei joins the alchemists and learns how to craft potions. Within weeks, she goes from a worn-out office drone to the beautiful maid she always was. This isn't because of some magic in the air or anything. It's because she's getting a good night's sleep, has coworkers who respect and like her, and isn't staring into a monitor for 14 hours a day. She has a fulfilling job and is enjoying life. But of course, a fairy tale ending like that can't happen in the first episode. And as I'm sure you're all aware, Sei is the real saint. And when the rest of the kingdom figures it out, and that they've pissed off the saint, everyone is walking on eggshells. Because the saint now has a job she loves, and really doesn't want to get pulled away to go fight monsters and clean up miasma. As you can see, the saint's magic power is omnipotent is that rarest of isekai series, a josei isekai, a series created for and marketed to adult women. Now that doesn't mean men can't enjoy it as well, but it does have a different feel than shows like Mushoku Tensei, or even the old shoujo isekai like Escaflowne. The characters are more nuanced and grounded, and while the plot may be pretty straightforward, use magic to save the world, how the characters go about achieving that goal is anything but a straight line. This is a great series that deserves more love. Sometimes you just want to shut off your brain and enjoy a fun series. In the past, I've discussed how there is a difference between good and fun. Just because an anime is bad doesn't mean it isn't fun. And Black Summoner encapsulates that. You've got a main character who sacrificed his memories to buy some absurd advantages. I suppose I should explain that. In some non-D&D tabletop games, like GURPS, you have advantages and disadvantages. GURPS is a point-based system rather than level-based. So when you're first building your character, you can take some disadvantages, things that restrict your character's options, to give you more points to spend elsewhere, like on stats or advantages. In the case of Kelvin, the main character from Black Summoner, he gave up all of his memories of his past life in order to get double growth rate and double skill points. In other words, when he kills a monster, he gets twice the amount of experience points that would normally happen. He also has the experience sharing ability as well. So long as he's in a party, everyone in the party gets the experience for killing a monster. There's a lovely scene later on where the two mains that they've hired to take care of the party's new house are having a picnic while the rest of the team clears a dungeon. The maids are now as strong as A-rank heroes. And since Kelvin gave up his memories, he doesn't remember rizzing up Melfinia, the goddess who helped him reincarnate. But she certainly does. And she's determined that they're dating now. Now, if you're looking for a serious isekai with a great plot, Black Summoner isn't for you. You will not enjoy the series. But if you want something fun and silly, you should absolutely watch it. The light novel goes on much further than the anime, but where they chose to stop the anime didn't feel like a cliffhanger. So go enjoy it. Sometimes you want a balanced show. Something that toes the line between serious and silly. Something silly in concept, but is presented as a serious series. Well, have I got a treat for you. Reincarnated as a sword seems like it would be an absurd anime. And it is absurd in concept. After all, you've got a guy who gets truck-cooned and wakes up as a sword. Not just any sword, but an obviously powerful one. After all, you don't just put any old sword on a plinth in the middle of the ruins of an ancient temple. That spot is reserved for Kingmaker swords. Swords with names and sagas written about them. Or massively long video game series. Our sword learns it can control itself and even picks up some skills from the monsters it kills. But it makes a mistake and winds up trapped in a mana dead zone. Without draining mana from killing monsters, it loses consciousness. Until it is picked up by the unlikeliest of heroes, an orphan slave girl named Fran. She becomes the chosen user and kills the monster attacking her and her fellow slaves. Then the sword, freed from the mana draining zone, kills the slavers, thus freeing Fran. Now, in a lot of isekai, there would be some questionable things going on. A romance developing between a very young girl and an adult male trapped in the body of a sword. But that does not exist here. Their relationship is wholesome, more of a proper father-daughter or teacher-student relationship. At least as far as I know. I haven't gotten super far in the series yet, but I really do hope it stays wholesome. Now, just because this series is wholesome doesn't mean it isn't violent. When some people attack Fran at the Adventurers Guild, Fran defends herself by lopping off limbs. This isn't some cute little shonen series where a giant sword acts as a club. Feet and hands go flying. The fights are brutal, and there are some rather intense scenes with Fran's backstory and her overcoming trauma. But it is balanced with some comedy and wholesome moments. Like I said, this series is more balanced than anything. Give it a shot if you want something both cute and violent. Quick note though, the anime adapted the first light novel and half of the second one. So if you're wanting to continue the story, you'll have to start with book 2 and skim to where the anime ends. Going even further away from comedy is Seruki Gensouki Spirit Chronicles. If you hate cliffhangers, stay away from this series. We've had 2 seasons, each of them a single core, and both of them ended with a pretty intense cliffhanger. Neither was the I am Locutus of Borg level, but we only had to wait 6 months for that one to resolve. Meanwhile, Seruki Gensouki made us wait 3 years in between seasons. In some isekai, only one person winds up in another world. In others, you have a whole group. The opening scene of Seruki Gensouki was a train crashing into a bus. We assume that everyone on the train is killed. Later, we find out that our main character wasn't the only passenger on that bus who wound up getting reincarnated. And the big cliffhanger that happens at the end of the first season? A summoning, pulling even more people from Japan into this other world. And of course, one of the girls is the childhood crush of our main character. The anime plays with time. People get summoned earlier in time or later, and people who die at the same time may not get reincarnated at the same time, or even the same place. As I'm sure you guessed, this anime also shows different ways people can get isekai'd. The main thing I love about this series is how the main character is forced out of every home he's ever had, but rather than being bitter or angry about it, he creates a new home for his found family. So, when no other place exists for you, create one for yourself. Of course, now that he's powerful, everyone wants him to join their faction. But our main character doesn't want that. He just wants a peaceful life with the one woman who always stood by his side. Another underrated anime that I highly recommend is Skeleton Knight in Another World. Our main character winds up as his video game avatar. He thought it would be cool to be a skeleton, but he now has to hide that fact or get run out of town. Or attacked by his half-asleep allies who already know his secret. The best part about this series is how much fun our main character is having. Even though his life, unlife, undeath, whatever, he still treats every day like it's a video game. Someone in trouble? A quest! Someone needs a monster killed? A quest! He just has a blast every day. And he's not a psychopath about it or anything. He isn't happy when innocents or his friends are hurt, and he will vent his anger on villains. But he approaches every day with the enthusiasm of a gamer who just had a new free DLC drop. Now, that's not to say this is a light and happy series. The opening is incredibly dark. 2 women are attacked by bandits, and the bandits start to do what bandits are wont to do with helpless women. So, trigger warning for sensitive viewers. They don't get the chance to do the deed though because they are butchered by our main character. That's another part of this series' charm. The world is dark and brutal, but the main character is light and happy. His joy is infectious, and he helps to lighten not only the series, but the characters he interacts with. And good news for people who enjoy the show, they are working on a season 2. We don't have a release date yet, but it is in the works. My number 1 recommended underrated isekai is Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic. In fact, it is the entire reason I made this video. I adore this series, and it is everything an isekai should be. 3 characters are brought to another world, 2 to save it, 1 by accident. And in this new world, all 3 of them discover themselves. The class president who was good at everything but never happy, the class VP who was always popular with the ladies is finally able to make a male friend, and Usato, the nobody who was dragged along discovering how tough and focused he can be under the right circumstances. Allow me to set the scene. One day after school, Usato finds himself walking home with the school council president and vice president. The 3 of them talk about their school lives and plans for the future, but all of them are just talking in vague niceties. None of them are very excited about school life or their prospects for the future. Then, a magic circle appears beneath the 3 of them. Suzune and Kazuki, the president and vice president, hear bells ringing as they're summoned to another world. But Usato hears nothing. Apparently, he was summoned by accident. The 3 of them have their magic power tested. Suzune discovers she's a lightning mage. And of course, there's a Pikachu reference later on in the series, after Usato discovers how much of a secret otaku Suzane is. Kazuki is a light wielder, but Usato just finds out that his magic color is green, which freaks the tester out. Apparently green magic is not only rare, it's something to be feared. Well, the magic isn't so much feared as the person who wields it is. You see, green magic is healing magic. All mages can perform a bit of first aid, but a healer is capable of so much more. Curing disease and poisons, regenerating from serious wounds, or even helping to recover stamina. And not so long ago, a healer discovered a new way to use this magic. It traumatizes most people, and the last thing they want to do is let her get her hands on this poor new boy. Even the king tries to keep it a secret from her. Who is this mysterious and frightening woman? Rose, the captain of the rescue squad. To understand how she uses healing magic, you need to have a basic understanding of exercise science. During exercise, muscles are destroyed. They then rebuild themselves with new, stronger fibers. This is how exercise works. You destroy your body and then rebuild it stronger. Of course, this takes time. Proper strength training isn't done in a weekend, it's done over the course of years. The reason behind this long drawn-out process is because you need time to allow your muscles to heal. Some of you already see where this is going. Rose discovered that she can regenerate her muscles using healing magic while training them to the levels of superhuman strength. And she's been looking for a successor. By the 2nd episode, Usato has completely transformed. Not just physically, but emotionally as well. He is aggressive in standing up for himself and won't take crap from his teammates. He jokes with his boss and pushes his limits both physically and socially. Of course, Captain Rose loves his spirit. She's not trying to break him despite appearances. She's trying to mold him. She knows how horrific the power of the demon army can be, and wants to ensure Usato not only survives physically, but mentally as well. People who are mentally tough have an easier time dealing with trauma, and without that toughness, Usato may not survive his first encounter with the demons. This show is a perfect balance of comedy, action, world building, and character growth. Great characters with an interesting and complex world with plenty of humor to keep the show feeling light and fresh. Throughout, the show feels hopeful, and I cannot recommend it enough. What about you? What's an underrated isekai that you were hoping made it to the list? I only made the list with completed series that I've enjoyed and felt deserved more attention. So if you have some recommendations for me, please let me know. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, a huge shout out to my editor Cutestuff. I couldn't make these videos without her. If you'd like to hire her to edit your own videos, she can be reached at cutestuff.edits@gmail.com. Link is down below. If you're looking for ways to support the channel directly, you can head on over to patreon.com/Damon. There are several tiers to choose from. You can pick an anime or manga for me to do a video about, or you can join our monthly manga club. I also want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons. Waffles, Jiraiya, Muffins, Marcus, Brett, Roxy, Alex, Borgie, Nazwin, Congo, Robert, Pye, Kazaris, Patrick, Tiz, Art, Richard, Sint, Boomy, Osira, Justin, Golden Walker, Ernesto, and Midge. You guys are awesome. I post anime or manga videos often, or you can click here to watch additional videos. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time on Musings by Danon.